guy who seemingly carried a can of gasoline and a lighter every time he went to a rally. He was ready to burn it down, and that excited people. As it turned out, voters from both sides concluded that there was no hope of finding common ground. Some of them, particularly in blue-collar country, decided to switch rather than fight and moved to the right. But we also witnessed unprecedented confrontations and a level of hostility not seen in this country since the Civil War. Battles over immigration, gun control, taxes, health care, abortion, entitlements, the environment, and everything else were pushing the parties to extremes. Emotions were boiling over in communities all over the country as gangs of leftist thugs and anarchists tried to muscle in on the conversation. But the fact is, President Trump won the 2016 election the old-fashioned way, earning the votes of more than 60 million Americans and winning the electoral votes of 30 states. It seems the biggest surprise in this developing story was that during the campaign, the administration of the outgoing president, aided by the Department of Justice, the FBI, the CIA, and a network of spies and undercover operatives, conducted a search-and-destroy mission against the Trump campaign. Over several months, these men and women laid an elaborate trap so that in the unlikely event Trump somehow snatched the victory from the waiting arms of Hillary Clinton, he wouldn't last long enough to do much damage. The fact that this deep state coup d'etat has largely failed and the president has successfully defended his administration is almost as big a miracle as the election itself. Against all odds. Donald Trump was an extraordinary candidate who came along at an auspicious time in our history. The challenge for President Trump, as the successor to the first Saul Alinsky-inspired community organizer, would be enormous, but he had the enthusiastic support of millions of voters all across the heartland, and they had his back, just as he had promised he had theirs. The election was evidence of the changing mood of the American voters. Nothing like it had ever happened. Trump's supporters were from every race, creed, and socioeconomic background, and from parts of the country that had never been known to back a conservative Republican for the presidency. Nothing better proved that the nation had reached a tipping point. When Trump first announced his plans to run for the presidency, like many, I wondered if he was actually a conservative. He had been a Democrat and a Republican and an independent at various times. He was for abortion before he was against it. He was volatile and unpredictable, and many wondered if he might be a bit trigger-happy and lead us into war. As an evangelical Christian, I wondered if he could be trusted to keep his promises to protect religious liberty and help the millions of persecuted Christians around the world. Since then, President Trump has exceeded all expectations. He is proved to have a character trait not shared by many politicians. He actually keeps his promises. He has used the slogan, "Promises made, promises kept," and once joked he had kept more promises than he'd made. As Michael Goodwin has pointed out in the New York Post, Trump's popularity has made seismic shifts in so many areas that Big Mo, momentum, has switched sides, from left to right. One big reason, he says, is because of the recent Supreme Court rulings favoring Trump's policies. The first upheld his revised travel ban for a handful of Muslim-majority nations, saying it was within his executive authority. It rebuked lower court judges who bought the partisan canard that it was a Muslim ban. Their invalid rulings stood in stark contrast to plain readings of the law, Goodwin says, and show them to be hacks blowing with the political wind. The second ruling blocked municipal unions from forcing their workers to pay union dues. This would turn out to be a tax cut for workers and deliver a major blow to the Democratic Party in New York, New Jersey, and other blue states. The nexus between unions and Democrats turned those states into one-party fiefdoms, writes Goodwin, and resulted in union contracts taxpayers can't afford. Both these rulings were decided on a 5-4 vote, with Justice Anthony Kennedy providing the swing vote. Then, with Justice Kennedy's retirement, the president was able to nominate Brett Kavanaugh as his successor and will likely have a chance to cement his legacy with the second or even a third appointment before his term is over. Decapitating the liberal stranglehold on the court would